Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about Mary Meeker's slide presentation. It's called the Internet Trends of 2017. Tell me what stood out to you.
Sure. So the first one, slide number 13, is maybe the most notable, at least in our sector. She says that 28% of the time is spent on mobile devices, but only 21% of the advertising dollars are spent on mobile. Last year, those numbers were 25% and 12%. So there was a 13-point gap last year that shrunk to a 7-point gap this year.
I have to assume Facebook's had a big...
Facebook's had a huge gap on that.
Impact.
Yeah.
Once Facebook figured out how to make money off mobile,
Yes.
Their fortunes changed, and so do these stats.
That's absolutely right. And slide number 15 in the deck, which is effectively the duopoly or the oligopoly, and it shows the growth rate of Google, which we know is doing fantastic, Facebook, which of course we just talked about, doing fantastic, and then everybody else, right? And so it is notable in and of itself that it's Google, Facebook, and everybody else. The next interesting slide to me, which was number 20, and it is nothing really visually interesting here. So why have Facebook and Google been able to be so successful? Why is Snap sort of burst on the scene, and what are they trying to do? It's all about these interfaces that provide great targeting. I need to reach millennials, or I need to reach certain people in geographic regions, psychographics, interests, and then also I need to have the measurements. And the entire ad tech ecosystem, of course, is really focused on measurement because there's a lot of opaque behaviors and things going on that people don't necessarily have visibility into.
It's gotten very sophisticated.
It has gotten incredibly sophisticated, and I think the takeaway on this one is if you want to have a successful digital business in the advertising space, you're going to have to offer some pretty compelling targeting. I thought this section did a really interesting job of illustrating a couple of trends. One, this graphic is kind of interesting. It goes all the way back to 1973, which is serious olden times.
Right.
But now look what's happened with the subscriptions. We're into 2017, or this data goes through 2016. Now subscriptions are even greater than the downloads and the synchronization. So the disruptors were just disrupted, right? And I think that's really interesting because you could have said in 2001, when Napster came on the scene and then went away, you could have said in 2009 or 10 when iTunes came on the scene and was doing really well that the music business is over, as we know. And plenty of people did say that, right? Records are dead.
I think I said it.
Exactly. Tapes are dead. CDs are dead.
Right.
Downloads are dead, and I think this chart to me illustrates a little bit of the hubris of trying to make these dogmatic predictions that this is dead and this is the way it's going to be from this point forward. So then moving forward out of music into television, or in this case Netflix, which is disrupted television. Another one, right? You remember when Netflix came out? I'm sure you do remember. We all got DVDs in the mail. We went on the internet, we ordered them, and we managed our queue. And what a quaint notion that seems to be now. And then back in 2007, Netflix launched its streaming. In this case, this is all about Netflix. Netflix disrupted itself. Well, and then that leads us to slide 170 here, which was another, just picking something out, the daily time spent by media. Number one, the overall amount of time being spent is going up. And we know, we've talked about this in many other instances, is there's only 24 hours in a day, right? So if you're going to spend more time on this, you're going to spend less time on something else. And so that's part of the tug of war, as there's too much content in the world competing for a finite amount of consumer attention. There are a lot of other interesting slides, and I do think there's a lot just to be even said by what are the 11 categories, right? The fact that India and China and healthcare ended up being their own bullets on here indicates their importance. So there's some very interesting content there.
All right. Well, there's a lot obviously we didn't get to, but thanks for providing those highlights, and thanks everyone for joining us.